A few months ago, a neighbor, Sharon Miller, went into hospice. I knew that she had been sick, but hospice? She was going to give up. She was going to die. My wife insisted that we visit. I wasn't thrilled about that. I've never been with someone who was dying. It was going to be gruesome. I was wrong. It wasn't gruesome. There were 4 or 5 people there. Her sister, her daughter, and Mel, her husband. Sharon was sitting upright. Good old Sharon, not hooked to any machine. I took a chair next to her. She wasn't in pain, and she was alert. We talked a while. I didn't know that she had been a school librarian, and she didn't know I was a teacher. We talked about our grandchildren, and we agreed that they are very special, very smart. The next time I went, it was all different. Sharon was lying in bed with her eyes closed, not moving. And I thought, this is a waste of time. She's dying. We might as well go home. But then something I'll never forget happened. I know that hearing is the last thing to go. Mel stood up close to her and started to talk. Sharon, do you remember our trips to Disneyland? Jamie's graduation, when Peter made that touchdown? Then he bent low and almost whispered, Sharon, your family loves you. Your family will be fine, and it's okay for you to go now. I almost tear up every time I think about that. I know Sharon heard Mel. I know she knew she was not alone, that her family would be safe, and that it was her time to go. I was wrong about hospice. Maybe you are too. Spend the next 20 minutes listening to the panel, and maybe you won't make the same mistake I did. I asked you guys to come together today to try to clear up some misconceptions about hospice. I'd like to just go around and everybody introduce themselves and tell what their role is in the hospice.
I'm Dr. Michael Marks. I'm a clinical psychologist.
I'm Rohit. I'm a volunteer.
And I'm Steve Cohen. I'm a retired social worker.
I'm Chris Henderson. I'm a registered nurse case manager for hospice.
Yeah, I'm Kenny Hegland, and I'm a retired teacher.
I'm Kevin Westbrook, spiritual counselor.
I'm Cassie Meredith. I'm a hospice social worker.
I'm Cheyenne Watson. I'm a licensed nursing assistant.
My parents had just moved from their home where they had lived for 50 years into an independent living type of a situation. And they weren't there for more than a month or two when my mother, who had been previously diagnosed with cancer, started experiencing a lot of symptoms. And in a short period of time, it was clear that she couldn't physically care for herself any longer, and my father wasn't able to provide that care. So I may have picked the wrong place, but we were in the cafeteria, which was full of folks, when I brought up the possibility of my contacting hospice for them to help with her care. And the only thing they knew about hospice, I suppose, was a place for people to die, because my father came across the table, and if he could have choked me, he would have choked me. He was so angry that I had brought that up in a public place and brought it up at all. And after I calmed him down and we had more of a conversation and time went on, and I think maybe a week or so later, I did call hospice, and it was a wonderful experience for my mother. She became very close with all the care, with the nurses that came in, with the caretakers that came in to help her bathe, and they were just there for her. For the family, just the support that we had and the support that we had after, I think, was really important as well. They helped us, reminded us of anniversaries. They were there to talk to us if we needed someone to talk with, to look back on that period of time, it was a wonderful service for our family.
When I was an intern at the Portland VA, I was on a consultation unit where we went all over the hospital, talking to people about any kind of psychological things that came up. And one day I got a consult to see a 45-year-old male with oat cell carcinoma who had about 3 months to live. His physician was concerned. He was a devout Catholic. He had about 10 kids. And so I got this consult, and being 25 years old and never really having sat down and talked to somebody about dying, I avoided it all day long. I made up paperwork. Finally, at the end of the day, I had to go see this guy. So I walked into his room, and Mr. Keller was lying there, and I said, "Mr. Keller, I'm Dr. Marks, and I'm a psychologist. Your physician is concerned about you and your family, and I don't know what the hell to say to you." And at that moment, George threw back his arms and said, "Oh, thank God." And I looked at him like, "What?" And he said to me, "People either have me dead already, or they're pretending like I'm going to live forever. And nobody is just talking to me as a human being." A phenomenon that's fairly common. One night I stopped by to see him, and we were done with our conversation. And I said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And he said, "No, I'm going to die tonight." Really? And sure enough, at 2 o'clock in the morning, he passed away. One part I always remember about George, and this is a veteran kind of thing, he was incredibly concerned about somebody across the hall, a man who didn't have any family. So his last wish to me was that I would go talk to this veteran, which I did, and we established a relationship.
They all talk about, you know, like the jobs of the people they care about, and like their children, their family. They'll talk about like, one of them gave me dating advice, which was really cute, and I really miss that one. But none of the patients I talk to end up talking to me about their net worth as they're going out, you know. It's not, I think it's another thing to keep in mind, because as people are on their way out, you know, like I think being a part of hospice and talking to like the younger generation and getting that opportunity is actually like a chance to like pass on all the stuff, like experiences you've had throughout your life. You don't have to like truly die. You can live on in like memories, even if it's like, you know, if they, like my patient might live on in my next date or something. But
What a legacy.
yeah, exactly.
And I think the most important message I would like to offer is just to let people know you're not alone through this. You don't have to be alone through this. That even though this is oftentimes an unexpected and scary news that you receive about impending death, we as a team have some experience. We've seen a lot of different scenarios, and we can pull on the resources and on each other to offer things to the family as far as emotional, as far as medical ideas, as far as spiritual and social resources, and even the day-to-day, how am I going to get her in the bath?
Listening to you guys, one thing is hospice is really not a place, it's a philosophy. And the philosophy is to make peace with death. We all know that death is going to win eventually. And our society has these weird attitudes that it's just horrible and we've got to keep away from it. It's kind of summarized, I think it was attributed to Woody Allen. He said, "Oh, I don't mind the idea of dying. I just don't want to be there when it happens."
Every 2 weeks we have a team meeting, and everybody on the team comes together. So we talk about the patients, we talk about the families, we say, "This I'm noticing is going really well," or gosh, the family's really having a hard time getting through this. Does anybody have any ideas? Do we need to try something new for pain? How can we teach the family not to fight so much against this very natural experience?
Voltaire, who was a great atheist, is on his deathbed, and a priest comes and says, "It's time to denounce the devil." And Voltaire says, "I've made enough enemies as it is."
Well, my involvement, my part of the team, does rest in matters of faith on many occasions. On many other occasions, though, not only do we deal with the patient's concerns, but we deal with the family's concerns. And oftentimes family members have a real hard time dealing with the death of their loved one. So we may end up counseling with the family member more than we do with the patient. And being part of the team, as Chris suggested, we talk every night. And if there's an issue that seems overwhelming, Cassie can call me and say, "Hey, can you get over here because this family member is really having a struggle." And I drop what I'm doing and go meet with Cassie. So it's truly a team effort. With regard to faith, we try to do whatever the patient and the family want us to do. Sometimes it's very liturgical, other times it's very free. It just depends on what the needs of the family are, and we just try to meet those needs. So it's not always just spiritual things. We do hear confessions. We do hear the desire for reconciliation over the years, and we make suggestions on how to do that. And we also hear nothing but love for family members. We also hear about estrangement and what that does in their current condition. So we hear the full 180 degrees of what a person might be feeling when it's getting close to passing away.
Because there's so much history before hospice is brought up. There's been so much medical trying and tests and a journey for everybody where everyone's just pretty much filled with fear or just exhausted. And so when we meet with that individual or the family for the first time, it's kind of just taking their hand and saying, where are you right now? What's important to you in this journey for you? And how can we begin making your loved one or you comfortable? How can we hear what you've been needing to say for maybe years or maybe a week or days? And it's just kind of stopping the clock. Everything's kind of being frenetic, and it's just saying, okay, we're here, we're gonna start this. I wondered if you would be able to share what you know from your experiences that you would want others to learn or to hear.
Hospice has been amazing. The support that you get when you are caring for a person with some sort of debilitating illness in your home. It is often isolating and frustrating, and it can even be depressing. So with hospice, you have a wide range of people who can support you and understand. We have the home health aides who can provide showers, and we have supplies that we get from hospice, like the bed, the oxygen machine, gloves, diapers, wipes, everything like that. We also have a social worker and a volunteer, and you can get you also have a spiritual support.
Right.
So all of that is necessary, I feel, for someone who is declining to support the family and the patient.
With my role, my main task is helping people with personal care. So that's like bathing and all that good stuff. But like anything, I have many hats. I do respite for patients. I'm trying to think in my head. I'm nervous. Like it's like presenting in school, like being the last is hard. The thing about hospice though is like, it's not just the team of hospice workers affecting the patient's lives, it's the patients affecting our lives. Like, I have so many countless patients that I have like built such an amazing bond with and built an amazing bond with their families.
What's important about the people who were in the video is not what they said, not even what they do, but who they are. These are caring, compassionate people who find deep meaning in being with people on their final journey. It struck me, do people like that go in to work in hospice? Or is something about hospice that brings that out in people, something that is there in all of us? I'm going to take care of some business now. First of all, hospice is not only for old folks. Anyone that needs the service can get it. Second of all, if you are on Medicare and the physician says you will probably die within the next 6 months, Medicare pays for hospice. It's essentially free. If your family is visiting at hospice, it's a good time to step outside and talk about funeral arrangements and who gets the grandfather clock. A lot of families fight about such things. All of the families I have talked to, all the families who have had a loved one in hospice have said, we waited too long. Had we started earlier, our loved one would not have gone through the pain, the uncertainty, and would have gotten better care. And perhaps they would have avoided the painful last-minute surgery which promised a medical miracle that seldom comes. Going into hospice, you aren't choosing death. You're choosing how to die, how to go gentle into that good night.